The play, The Caucasian Chalk Circle, is a play set during a civil war, and there's been a huge coup staged and the governor has been beheaded, and his wife, who's this terribly grand, wealthy woman, has run off to save her own skin, and she's left behind her newborn baby son. And a young serving girl called Grusha sees this baby and can't help but want to help it.
She looks after the child, she's responsible for it, she gets it fed when it's hungry, she negotiates how to find it milk. She has very little in her life, but she uses what tiny resources she has, and the resources of her mind and her body and her ingenuity to keep it alive and protect it.
We see how, by facing a series of tests, each one bigger than the last one, she makes this incredible journey to being somebody who takes amazing risks because it's the right thing to do to protect Michael.
You have a very strong sense that it belongs to her. It's not hers. It doesn't carry her genes. She doesn't own it. She didn't pay for it through an adoption agency. She saw what it needed and gave it what it needed, and she knows it. And the idea that you own that which you know, not that which you can buy, is a really interesting idea and pertains very much to our times now, I think.
So at the moment we're quite early on in our design process and working out how we're going to stage this huge play. Myself and Hayley, our designer, we have worked together a few times before, and we always start with images and music. We build up huge online scrapbooks of images, and those images at the moment are very much filled with a lot of pictures of refugee camps, displacement camps across the world, places like Syria and the Ukraine. We've been looking at soldiers in those locations. We've been looking at images of the Gaza Strip, of people trying to live their lives in amongst that awful, awful situation that's there. So those have been kind of a lot of the images that we're kind of returning to, and that's going to, I think, really influence the design and the way that we tell this story and have a feeling of war zones.
For me, there's this myth that young people aren't interested in politics. The young people I know are very interested in politics. They might not be interested in parliamentary politics, but I think ideas about justice and how the world should be. We live in the society that we deserve. The society that we have is the one that we've created. We have nobody to blame for it but ourselves. And I think seeing a play in which reinforces that is interesting, because it makes you then think, yeah, well, I'm going to go and change this thing. I'm going to do this piece of activism that I think is important.
He challenges us to think about the world in which we live and challenge our assumptions and not take things for granted, but to hope and work for something better.
I suppose I define contemporary by how it is formed in production rather than necessarily when the play was written. So we do quite a lot of plays here that might be by ancient Greek writers, or by Shakespeare, or by Brecht, or by writers who are living today, or by no writer, things that are devised or have just been invented. And I suppose that to me what makes something contemporary is not necessarily so much when it was originally written, but the way in which the recreation of it now speaks to the world that we live in today. So to me, Brecht is as contemporary as a piece of new writing.
I think there are lots of issues in the world today that resonate with Brecht's views and arguments in the Caucasian Chalk Circle. Questions like social justice, questions like the relationship between justice and the law, questions about the sort of society we want to live in, whether we're satisfied with the way things are at the moment.
He didn't want people to kind of check in their brain with their hat at the door. He wanted them to have a brain in the space, and he wanted them to think about what was happening and question their own viewpoint on it, and then that might then make people go and change the world, ideally.
Grusha is an incredibly powerful character, one of the strongest characters Brecht created. And I think she's so powerful because she makes such an incredible journey.
She's not a natural heroine. You do not know at the start of that play, and this is, I think, what Brecht does very well, is that you meet characters who you might think are going to be good and then they turn out to be bad, and you meet characters who are nondescript or bad and then they end up being good. And it was Juliette Stevenson, when I saw her do it, she was just, she's fantastic. So it was an absolutely amazing portrayal.
My experience of playing Grusha was one of the happiest of my working life. I think the production I was involved in would be my sort of desert island production. If I had to take just one job I'd done in 35 years, it might well be this one.
We know she deserves to keep Michael, the child, but we don't know if things are going to work out for her. So we're really sitting on the edges of our seat, hoping against hope that she gets a fair deal.
I always love it when I can get as far away from myself as possible, and I think that's probably the furthest I ever got, was playing her. At the same time, you know, I adore kids. I'm very soppy about children, and I like to think if I was in that situation, I'd grab the baby too and run off with it. So I could also identify with her.
This amazing, amazing play doesn't get performed very often, and we have got a fantastic opportunity to really make it our own, to make it relevant to now, to give it a real contemporary kind of kick, and it's just an amazing story. Grusha's tale, you can't help but be carried away with it and want justice for her.
I think it's a play that's going to lend itself brilliantly to that space, which is such a democratic, wonderful, open space. It's a house which invites inclusion and conversation between performers and the audience, which I think is very Brechtian. It's sort of tailor-made for the unicorn, really, and very timely. I don't think there's been a production for a long time.
And it's also incredibly funny. It's going to have an amazing soundtrack. We're hoping to make it very epic in terms of its staging, and also just be a lot of fun. I just want to tell a fantastic story that's really clear and really engaging.